Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into Clan Lamont, looking at their history and what made them unique.
And we're drawing everything from the brand new book in the Ancient Clans of Scotland series, which focuses entirely on them.
Right. This is a really comprehensive source put together by BagtownClans.com, published by Rigby Publishing. It covers, well, pretty much everything.
It really does. Origins, traditions, symbols, the big events.
Hmm.
It's all in there.
So our mission today is to pull out the most interesting bits, the key takeaways, to give us solid handle on Clan Lamont quickly.
And get you up to speed on this fascinating clan.
Exactly. And just so you know, if you want to go even deeper after our chat, the book itself is available. There's a link right in the description.
Definitely worth a look.
Yeah, it's a great read, and honestly, it'd make a fantastic gift for anyone into Scottish history or maybe with Lamont roots.
It would. And the book itself feels like a tribute, you know? It's dedicated to the descendants of Clan Lamont everywhere.
Honoring their past, celebrating who they are today.
Yeah, and aiming to sort of keep that story alive as a living heritage.
Okay, so let's get started. The source does briefly touch on the basics of the clan system, how it was more than just family, right?
A whole way of life, kinship groups, sometimes a shared ancestor, but also people joining for protection or land, loyalty, support, that whole structure.
Chieftains, taxmen, the usual hierarchy.
Yes, but the book quickly pivots to how Clan Lamont, while fitting that mold, had its own distinct flavor right from the start.
And those origins are really interesting. It mentions a blend of Norse and Gaelic heritage.
That's a key point. And the name, Lamont itself, apparently tells a story.
How so?
Well, it comes from the Gaelic Laomainn, which they think comes from an Old Norse word, Logmire.
Logmar. What does that mean?
It means lawman or law speaker.
Ah, okay. So right from the name, there's this hint of legal authority, not just, warrior strength.
Exactly. It suggests a different foundation, perhaps. And tradition also links them back to Anothan Uaneil, an Irish prince from the 11th century.
So that connects them to other big clans, too, like the MacNeils.
The Neils, McLaughlins, yeah. It places them in that wider Gaelic noble context.
And when did they actually show up in written records?
The book points to 1235 as the first clear date. There's a Sir Laomainn, son of Malcolm, granting lands at Kilman to Paisley Abbey.
Kilman. Okay, so that's the first real foothold we see documented in Cowal.
Pretty much. Though the book also mentions an earlier surname, MacCarricker, from an ancestor Firshar, they transitioned to Lamont as they, established themselves.
Gained power in Cowal, made alliances, that sort of thing.
Right, building their base around places like Inverine and Tord. What's interesting is how they seem to have balanced that Norse element with being fundamentally Gaelic guardians of law and tradition, not just fighters.
So this unique background must have shaped how the clan was set up.
It seems so. The structure, as the book describes it, was Highland, yes, but with this distinct, legalistic, even sort of literary character.
How did that play out in the roles?
Well, the chief, Anchinnard, wasn't just a war leader. He was the legal head, the supreme judge.
Interesting.
And below him, you had the Tanist, Antenist, an elected heir, often chosen for ability, which adds a layer to the usual hereditary idea.
Elected. Okay, that is different.
Then you have the usual chieftains heading branches, taxmen managing lands and troops, stewards for estates and justice, foresters, even the Jill Quaws, the chief attendant.
But you mentioned literary.
Yes, roles like the Shenekis or bards, the historians and storytellers. The book names one, Finlay Rood, and pipers, harpers. There's that story about the Lamont harp, too.
Right, keeping the culture alive.
And this really unique feature, an annual council at Kilfannin, the book calls it a miniature parliament.
A parliament. What did they do?
Settle disputes, maybe elect the Tannis, uphold laws. It sounds like real governance, not just a gathering.
That really hammers home that lawgiver identity alongside the cultural side.
Absolutely. And this whole setup was led by a long line of chiefs. The book traces them from that early Firchor MacCarricker right down to the current chief, Chief Peter Noel Lamont.
Wow, incredible continuity.
It really is.
And the heartland for all this activity. You mentioned Cowal.
Definitely the Cowal Peninsula. That was their base. The book details the key places, and their stories are quite powerful. Tord Castle was the main medieval seat from the 15th century.
Tord Castle. I know that name. Didn't end well, did it?
No, tragically not. It was surrendered and destroyed in 1646. It's a ruin now, a very stark reminder. Ascot Castle on Bute, another important place, met the same fate in 46.
So where did they go after that?
Lamont House sort of became the main seat by default. It was rebuilt later, but it has its own drama. The 1893 murder happened there, and it was sold eventually, now private.
Any land still connected to the clan today?
Remarkably, yes. Knockdale House is still held by descendants. The book says it even houses clan archives and hosts events. A living link.
That's amazing that it survived.
It is. And Kilfin Aisle and Church are also highlighted the burial site, the council venue. Damaged in 1646, but rebuilt. Still a public site. There's a memorial panel there.
So even with the loss of land, mostly to the Campbells, as the book notes, there are these points of endurance, like Knockdown, and reminders, like the Kilman effigies and the Dunoon cross for the massacre.
Precisely. The history is etched onto the landscape.
And the clan itself spread out from these centers, right, through branches and septs?
Exactly. Branches were typically cadet lines, younger sons setting up their own households on different lands, like Lamont or Knockdown.
Okay, related but distinct. And septs, how does the book define a sept?
It defines a sept as a family name historically linked to the clan. Not necessarily direct descendants, but connected, through blood, marriage, living on the land, or pledging allegiance.
And they could wear the tartan?
Yes, they were considered part of the wider clan community. The book lists some clear examples. Lamont and variants, Mac Lamont, those are direct.
Makes sense.
But then you get names linked to roles. Black and brown families were apparently hereditary foresters and smiths near Tord.
Ah, practical connections.
Right. Clement is linked to a Lamont first name. Lucas was maybe a clerical branch. Lamb connects to an older coat of arms symbol. Turner were armorers. Loairmonts came in through marriage.
It shows how diverse a clan could be.
Definitely. And it also mentions names like McCurachar, that ancestral one Munn for fishing families, Patterson, maybe linked to church dependents, a whole network.
And this network, this identity, is captured in their symbols. The crest badge sounds striking a severed hand holding a sword.
Yes, within the usual strap and buckle with the motto, and the book connects that imagery straight back to the Laomainn origin.
The hand upholding the law.
Exactly. Justice, resolve, not just aggression.
And their plant badge.
The crabapple, traditionally linked to the Tord Castle lands, used ceremonially.
Simple, but rooted in place. What about the heraldic arms?
Described as very ancient and notably simple for Highland heraldry. A silver lion rampant on a blue field, representing sovereignty.
And they have specific pipe tunes, too.
Captain Maclemont's March for a Napoleonic officer, and the more somber The Exile's Lament, recalling 1646. Tunes that keep history audible.
History and identity. Even the chief's Gaelic title speaks to that.
Mac Laomainn Mór Tromhailúil, which translates to Great Maclemont of all Cowal.
Firmly tying them to their land.
Absolutely.
And their motto is quite famous, Ne parcus nec spernus.
Neither spare nor scorn. The book says it was around by 1624, officially registered.
And the meaning isn't straightforwardly aggressive.
No, the interpretation discussed is more about restraint, maybe justice, discipline. Again, linking back to that lawman idea, it's still used ceremonially.
Interestingly, the book says there's no confirmed battle cry.
Yeah, it suggests maybe the symbols and mottos serve that purpose, or perhaps any specific cry just got lost after the trauma of 1646.
Speaking of symbols, let's talk tartan. Always a popular topic. The book says 4 official ones.
That's right, modern, ancient, hunting, and dress.
And the modern one, the main one, has quite a story behind its design.
It really does. Dark green, navy blue, black bands, white stripes, created around 1810. But the key thing the book highlights, it was designed as a deliberate reversal of the Campbell of Argyll tartan.
A reversal? How so?
They basically took the Campbell pattern and swapped the yellow lines for white.
Wow. That's quite a statement after centuries of conflict with the Campbells.
Absolutely. The book frames it as a conscious assertion of Lamont independence and identity after being dominated by the Campbells for so long.
And the colors mean something, too.
Green and blue for Cowal's woods and waters, black for endurance through hardship, and the white for peace or renewal. It's the most common one you'll see today.
And the others, briefly.
Ancient uses the same pattern, just muted colors like old vegetable dyes. Hunting is mostly green for, well, hunting. And dress has a white background, much more formal.
Good to know. And the book warns about unofficial ones, too.
Yeah, things like the Sobieski Stewart fakes or other designs that aren't actually recognized by the clan. Stick to the official ones.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The book delves into supernatural tales associated with the clan.
It does, and it frames them quite movingly, not just ghost stories, but as a kind of language of memory, especially connected to the 1646 massacre trauma.
Like the keening on the shore.
Exactly. At Tord Castle ruins, on June 3rd, the anniversary, people report hearing mournful Gaelic singing, seeing strange lights, corp candles, and there are warnings about trying to record it or mock it.
Chilling. And the weeping effigy.
At Kilfinane Church in the burial aisle, a stone knight statue that's said to weep on June 3rd when a chief dies. The book even mentions old accounts of actual dampness on the stone and this feeling of sadness there.
Wow. Then there's a stag.
The Knockdown Black Stag, a spectral stag seen near Knockdown House, supposedly right before a Lamont death. Sir Norman Lamont apparently recorded seeing it in his diary. Hunters and dogs are said to avoid the area when it appears. Silence falls.
These are powerful stories.
They really are. The book lists others too. A grey lady at Tord, a glaistig, a Bean-Nye washerwoman, even an echo of a gunshot at Ardlamont linked to the murder. A curse of the broken hand, the crab apple as a charm. It shows how the past sort of haunts the present.
And that past included some very real, very brutal conflicts. Blood feuds.
Yes. The book makes it clear the feud with Clan Campbell of Argyll was the dominant, most tragic one, starting way back in 1371 over land.
And escalating until
the horrific climax in 1646. The Dunoon Massacre. That event just shattered the clan's power, cost so many lives, so much land.
devastating blow.
Huge. And the book notes, a formal reconciliation didn't happen until 1909, centuries later, when the memorial cross was dedicated at Dunoon.
A long shout out. Were there other feuds?
Yes, the book mentions a few others that show different kinds of conflict. With the MacDougalls during the Wars of Independence, Lamont sided with Bruce then.
Aligning with the winning side there.
Right, a rivalry with the Stuarts of Bute over maritime stuff and land claims, but that one got settled in court, not battle.
Interesting contrast.
And a strange one with the MacGregors. Started as a personal quarrel, led to raids, but apparently ended with hospitality later on. Also, a smaller feud with the Campbells of Ardkinglass over timber rights, which fed into the bigger tensions before 1646.
So feuds could range from all-out war to legal disputes or even personal squabbles.
Pretty much sums it up.
This history of conflict naturally leads to battles. What were their key involvements?
Well, going back, fighting with Robert the Bruce at the Pass of Brander in 1308 was significant, earned them royal favor early on.
Okay.
There's mention of a Laomainn galley skirmish around 1440, showing some maritime activity. They helped defend Dumbarton Castle against the English in 1544.
Part of wider national events.
Yes. Then came the really intense period in the mid-1600s. They backed Montrose at Inverlochy II in 1645 and launched raids into Campbell territory afterwards.
Which led directly to the Campbell retaliation.
Sadly, yes. The sieges of Tord and Ascog in 1646, the destruction of their castles, followed immediately by the Dunoon Massacre. That was the catastrophe.
A definite turning point.
Absolutely. After that, the book notes a marked shift toward caution. There's an Argyll militia standoff in 1685 where they stayed neutral.
Learning from the past?
You could say that. And critically, their service in the government's militia of Cowal during the 1715 and 1745 Jacobite risings.
They fought for the government side.
They served in the militia loyal to the crown, yes. A strategic move that meant they avoided the harsh penalties many Jacobite clans faced after Culloden. Later, in 1803, they mustered with the Argyll Volunteers during the Napoleonic era, more like civic duty by then.
So that cautious approach in the 1545 brings us to Culloden itself, 1746. Were Clan Lamont there?
The book is very clear on this. No, Clan Lamont as a clan force was not present at the Battle of Culloden.
Okay, so why not?
Because of 1646. The trauma of the massacre and the loss of their castles and power fundamentally changed their approach. They'd stepped back from being major players in that kind of large-scale clan warfare.
But they did contribute men to the government side.
Yes. The book says 42 men served in the Argyll militia, which supported the Hanoverian government. But critically, that unit was stationed elsewhere during the actual battle. They fulfilled their obligation without being on the front lines against the Jacobites.
The book calls it deep-seated caution rooted in historical trauma.
That sums it up well. It was a strategic choice for survival, for rebuilding what was left of the clan.
And it worked, in a way.
In terms of survival, yes. Unlike clans devastated by the post-Culloden crackdown, the Lamonts, by staying out of the main fight, were able to hold on to their remaining lands and focus on recovery. A very pragmatic decision, born from tragedy.
The book also includes some really quirky, unexpected details, strange and unusual facts.
Yeah, some fascinating nuggets, like the Lamont murder in 1893, that picnic with a bang.
Yeah.
The book links it to Dr. Joseph Bell, Conan Doyle's inspiration for Sherlock Holmes.
No way.
Yes, and connects it to that ghostly gunshot echo story.
That's wild. What else?
The story of the clan harp, the harp that wouldn't stay put. It went through various hands and somehow ended up in Inverary Castle.
A Campbell stronghold. You couldn't make it up.
Right. Then there's Johann von Lamont, born John Lamont in Cowal, becomes a famous astronomer in Bavaria, gets a crater on the moon named after him.
From Cowal to the moon. Amazing.
There's simple heraldry, no-frills heraldry, the chief saying they needed innate embellishment. The Weeping Stone Knight again, the spectral black stag, death by deer.
Rim nickname.
And that tartan revenge idea in the modern tartan design. Plus, the fact their earlier crest might have been a paschal lamb, linking to seps like lamb, before the severed hand took over from lamb to hand.
So much packed in there. And all this history, the good and the bad, led to people leaving Scotland, the Diaspora.
Yes, the book tracks the Lamont Diaspora. It started early 1600s with people going to Ulster, but the 1646 massacre really accelerated it, scattering survivors.
Where did they go later on?
All over. The Americas soldiers, farmers. The book mentions a surprising link to Jamaica, with some reggae producers tracing roots back to Cowal Lamonts.
Jamaica, wow.
Canada, too, involved in building railways. Australia and New Zealand gold rushes drew some. One chief even resettled in New Zealand, and there was intermarriage with Maori families.
A truly global spread.
It is. And the book points out how descendants worldwide are still connecting, tracing those links, often through digital projects now. The name pops up in unexpected places.
And the clan societies help maintain those connections today.
Absolutely. The book mentions the official ones: UK, North America, Canada, Australia. They're vital for preserving heritage, research, archives, organizing gatherings, keeping the modern clan community vibrant.
It's quite a story we've unpacked, from those Norse Gaelic lawman roots, the unique structure, the cultural depth, through the absolute devastation of the feud and massacre, the strategic survival post-Culloden, and then this global scattering and resilience.
It really is a powerful narrative about identity, trauma, and endurance. How history gets carried in symbols, stories, and the connection people maintain to a place, even across centuries and oceans.
A remarkable clan history. And a final thought for you, perhaps, is to consider how that core identity, the lawman aspect, the cultural focus, might have been the very thing that helped them endure despite the military catastrophes. Maybe strength isn't only measured in battle.
That's a great point to ponder. Their unique character might have been their ultimate resilience.
And remember, all the details, the stories, the insights we share today came directly from this fantastic new book on Clan Lamont in the Ancient Clans of Scotland series.
It's packed with so much more than we could cover.
Definitely. So if you want the full picture, check out the link in the description to purchase the book. Like we said, great read, great gift.
Highly recommended.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Clan Lamont.